Rob, will the Cavs lose a game before the finals?
Yeah, they'll lose a game. I think last year was the same thing. People thought they were going to just, roll in. It's just impossible. There'll be one night where one of the teams will make some shots, and you know what I mean? And LeBron and them will probably take a night off or just feel bored or, because it's I
So
know.
it's come to this. They
but-
have to be bored.
But
to
that's
lose a
how it
game.
is, Skip. I don't see anybody in the way. LeBron should have a toothache for all the cupcakes that he's eaten over the last 8 or 9
Don't do
years.
that, Rob. Rob,
I'm
don't do that.
serious.
Don't do that, Rob.
That's not to say I'm not blaming LeBron. He can only play who's in front of him.
Right.
But you got to admit, Shannon, that when you look back on LeBron's era, you're going to say there was nobody there. There was no point of resistance in the East. When you try to make a case for Paul George and those guys up in Toronto and
Celtics.
Lowry and all and the
the
Celtics,
Bulls.
I mean, it's just nobody, and that's not his fault. But I'm just saying his legacy is going to be marred by this. That he didn't have. You want to have a battle, and you know what? You could look at Michael Jordan and say this. He had to struggle with the Pistons before he finally got over the hump.
But what
The
happened?
Pistons Isaiah and them had to struggle against the Celtics, Skip, before they finally got over the hump. Every team should have to do that. LeBron hasn't had to struggle.
Hold on. You say Jordan had to struggle against the Pistons. What happened when he finally beat the Pistons? They were old. You talk about the Pistons.
They weren't
Hold on.
old.
Don't do that, Rob. Rob, you were in Detroit.
They
You
were-
were in Detroit. When the bad boy Pistons were in their prime, what did they do to Jordan? When the big three Celtics were in their prime, what did they do to everybody in the East, Rob Parker? Tell the truth now.
Yeah, but the difference was at the way that they played the game then. You know this. Was Michael Jordan guarded the same way, Skip, as they'd guard LeBron
they
James?
changed
Is it the same game?
There was a book written about it called The Jordan
Thank
Rules,
you.
about the Pistons' rules for guarding Michael Jordan.
You know what, Skip? You give me a lot of credit, and we were talking, me and Skip was having a conversation, and I'm not gonna get into the conversation we was having it. He says, but you know, Shannon, I'm really impressed with your historical knowledge of the NBA.
I am.
He says,
True statement.
football, you know it.
Right.
You played it, you know it back and forth. He says, but basketball. And I was like, well, hold on. You know what? I was a young man. I was, really into basketball. Because I remember, 79, the great game between, but I also, so I go back a ways.
I've been covering the league since 1987. I want to let you know that, too.
Okay.
Okay.
Magic Johnson. Magic Johnson was great. Great player, wasn't he, right?
Yep.
Played in the West, right, Skip?
Yes.
In 82, when they went to the finals, they was 8-0 in the playoffs before they got to the finals. 8-0. They didn't lose a game. So if the zeros in the last column, that means what? You didn't lose nothing. Okay, in 83, they lost 3 games. Playing 3 rounds, they lost 3 games going to the finals. In 85, they went 11-2 before they got to the Celtics in the finals. 3 rounds, lost 2 games. Dang. 87, let me tell you about 87. They played the Celtics again. They were 11-1 before they got to the finals. All these big
How about 88?
They struggled that year.
Oh! He wasn't going to mention
I
that
was
one, Skip.
there.
Hold up.
Wait, the Dallas Mavericks, the baby Dallas Mavericks took them to 7 games at the Forum.
Hold on. In 89, before they got swept by the Pistons, they were 11-0. And in 91, when Magic was old and past his prime, and he was hurt, they lost 3 games before they lost to the Bulls. So for all y'all keep talking about LeBron, and you keep talking about the Mavericks, how many Hall of Famers was on that Mavericks team?
They were loaded with. They went about
Hold
8
up.
deep with
On
really
the-
good players.
How
Big
about
time.
Roy Tarpley would have been if he didn't have.
How about this, Skip? You tell-
Derek Harper, Rolando Blackman.
But
I
Mark
could go on and
Aguirre.
on and on.
You can go on and on. But they were playing the Clippers. The Clippers had not yet arrived at L.A.
They were in San Diego?
Oh, yeah. And the Kings hadn't arrived in Sacramento. They were in
Okay.
Kansas City.
But
Now
this-
tell the rest of my story, Skip.
Okay, now I'm going to tell the LeBron James story because he has had nothing but cakewalks to 6 straight finals in the Eastern Conference, and he is so blessed to not have had to play in the West at a time when it's much tougher than the East. So we go back to the greatest player ever, Michael Jeffrey Jordan, and went through all of his, and I won't bore you with this, I'll just sum it up for you. In the Eastern Conference alone, on the way to the finals, he had to face 39 Hall of Famers over 20 series covering 13 years. That's 39 Hall of Famers. And we know about the first 5 Hall of Famers because you shortchanged those Celtics because it was Bird, McHale, Parrish. Dennis Johnson's in the Hall of Fame,
Right.
and Bill Walton is in the Hall of Fame, and he was the Sixth Man of the Year.
And what you call him? They also had Tiny Archibald on that team, who's also in the Hall of Fame,
Hall of
the
Fame.
81 team.
Danny
But go ahead, Skip.
Okay,
Go ahead.
Then back to the Pistons here. There weren't just a couple of Hall of Famers. There are 5 Hall of Famers on that team, starting with Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars, Dennis Rodman, Bill Laimbeer, and Adrian Dantley was on the first team.
Yes.
So that's 5 Hall of Famers. You
Bill
have to
Laimbeer's
try
in
to
the Hall of
fight
Fame?
for. Yeah.
I
He's
didn't
in the
know
Hall
that.
of
Is he?
Fame. Yeah. I think so.
No, I don't think
I'm
so.
not sure, Skip.
Not
That one
sure?
I'm not
Okay,
sure.
but
Okay,
the
4,
other guys.
at least 4.
All right. So you have to face them year after year. Then Dantley got traded to the Mavericks for Mark Aguirre. So you added Mark, who was really a great
Yeah.
player, not a Hall of Famer, but a very good player. And then along the way, you have to deal with Shaq and Barkley and Ewing several times and Alonzo Mourning. And then at the end, 98, you got Reggie Miller and Chris Mullin and that Indiana team that was really a tough basketball team. And that thing went 7 games.
But Skip, you keep talking about these Hall of Famers, but when they had those Hall of Famers in Boston, what did Michael Jordan do? When they had those Hall of Famers in Detroit, and they did, hold on.
No, I'm
hold
not.
on.
I'm not buying your funny math or your new math, because what you're not saying is you're saying Michael couldn't get through them, but LeBron's not even facing anybody. That's the difference. It's like this LeBron. Who? Paul George? Who?
So Paul,
name me the toughest opponent he's had to face in the East. Who?
Let me ask you a question. Do you think Paul Jordan, when his career is over, will be a Hall of Famer?
No.
Okay.
And I'll ask you this. LeBron went and joined up with 2 of the best players in the East in order to get to where he was. And even then, he only won 2 out of 4 championships. Then.
The only difference between then and now is that the players didn't have the option of free agency to move around. The players are taking it upon themselves to put teams together. Just because a general manager or the owner put the team together, that doesn't make it easy. Think about it. You have James Worthy, you have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, you have Magic Johnson, you have Jamal Wilkes, you have Bob McAdoo, all within a 3-year time frame. So how many times do you expect them to win the championship, Rob? Talk about the Supersonics. How many Supersonics?
No. But you're manipulating. What LeBron did was manipulate. He looked at the East. He looked at where he was. He realized if I put this together, he's got a clear path. It's a manipulation that's totally different from putting together a team as a general manager, taking a piece. Bob McAdoo was with the Buffalo Braves, and then you know what I mean, and all kinds of stuff. And yes, did they get him? He was a good player. Yes.
And they drafted Larry Bird before his senior year, and they got him.
Okay.
And they made the trade for
and
Robert
they got
Parrish.
lucky on some other stuff. I get that.
Okay.
But I'm just saying LeBron manipulated it to the East and hasn't faced nearly as many top 50 players when you go through the list. And that's all. It doesn't mean that he's not a great player.
It doesn't mean
he's had an easier route. That's it. You have to admit that.
Rob,
Shannon, I want you to admit it.
No,
I want you to admit it.
It does not mean that there won't be top 50 players when they do a new calculation.
Who? Give me a name.
Well, tell me these great.
Give me a name. Give me
DeMar
one name.
DeRozan.
Is that it? Give me a name.
Give me the great players.
Shannon, give me one name. Give me one name in the East.
Give me the great players in the Supersonics.
Give me one.
In the Kansas City Royals. Give me a great name.
Give me one.
On the San Diego Clippers. Give me one.
But you can't give me a name. Who's coming? Who's the Hall of Famer? Carmelo.
Carmelo ain't going to the Hall of Fame.
And what did Carmelo do in his postseason career?
Okay, you said, but Tracy McGrady's going to the Hall of Fame. What did he do?
Tracy McGrady, are you sure he should be going to the Hall of Fame?
It doesn't matter if he should or shouldn't.
No, but that's my
D. Wade is in the Hall of Fame.
Skip. Tracy McGrady's a Hall of Famer.
All I'm
Just
saying.
as a note, Shannon, in the 91 playoffs when Jordan beat the Pistons, Isaiah Thomas was 29 and Joe Dumars was 27.
They weren't. They're old. He said they were all old and washed up.
29, 27.
Isaiah Thomas was in 11th year.
29 years
29
old. He wasn't old.
Old.
Joe Dumars, what did you say, 28?
Old.
27.
When the big three.
By the way, the Raptors have announced this morning that Kyle Lowry is a game-time decision. So we'll see.
There we go again.
Can we get a refund on those?
We did it with Kyle Lowry.